Welcome ladies and gentlemen, it's Iceblade here with another YouTube video. Today we're looking at yeast. No, it's not a game, and no, it's not something you put in your computer or grows in your computer. Well, I don't hope so. Well, there's wild yeast all around us, so it's probably possible. But no. It is another hobby of mine, home brewing. So during my process of learning how to do home brewing, I've been doing this for close to 5 years now. I've joined many forums and groups and communities. That's actually very helpful. I mean, the home brewing community is one of the best communities I'm part of. They're never sarcastic or toxic. They will always find ways to help you with information. Even if you mess up, they will still look at what went wrong and how to not do that again. It's a great community. And that's where we get to yeast. Because during this lockdown period for COVID-19, people could not buy and sell alcohol anymore, so they ended up being stuck at home and then suddenly turning to home brewing, becoming instant home brewers, because there was recipes about pineapple beer, ginger beer, ciders, even wines, and people wanted to know how to produce these, because now also home brewing shops were also closed down to the lockdown, and people had to go to find these ingredients in supermarkets. Now you in South Africa you do find brewing yeast in supermarkets, but those sold out very quickly. You do still find them in smaller towns. I still find them where I'm located, and in the bigger centers the brewing yeast that you do find is a supplement, a nutritional supplement for vitamin B's. It's quite good. It has a bitter taste, but you can add it to shakes and stuff. It's very good for you. But those people were left with baking yeast. Now, baking yeast in the form of baking cake yeast, dry instant yeast, dry active yeast even. And that is where these people now suddenly joined our community and groups and forums, and the question kept coming up: can I brew with baking yeast? Now you need to look at baking yeast, or where it comes from, to understand yeast and baking yeast as such. So if we would take our time machine back into time, we would see that when brewers were doing ales and using ale yeast, which is a top fermenting yeast, the bakers used to go to brewers and collect that top part, the foam, or krausen as they call it, and they would collect that and make bread. So back then, baking and brewing yeast was the same yeast, and many years have passed, and the needs of bakers and the needs of brewers changed, and they needed different flavor profiles for beers, and bakers needed their dough to brew faster. They didn't want to wait weeks. They wanted an instant thing. I mean, today I want to bake, and that's what happened. But it still forms part of the same strain. Funnily enough, baking yeast is the same strain as brewing yeast, which is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Now, Saccharomyces is a Latinized Greek word meaning sugar mold or sugar fungus, and cerevisiae is a Latin word for of beer. So baking yeast is of beer. But if you look at beer, you get two types of yeast. It's either the ale yeast, like I mentioned, the top fermenter, or lager yeast, which is a bottom fermenter. Now, ale yeast ferments at higher temperatures, say from 10 to 25 degrees Celsius, where lagers would ferment at lower temperatures, which is 7 to 15. And they were kept at storerooms where the temperatures were nice and cold, and that's where the German word for lager is actually storeroom or warehouse. Now, all yeast have the capability of producing alcohol. That's actually what they do. If you look at your basics of brewing or fermenting, you need water, sugars, and yeast. So the byproducts, if like you would explain it to a child, it would be that the yeast would eat the sugars and then they would poop alcohol. So that's the byproduct. Ethanol, which is alcohol, and then carbon dioxide, which is CO2, and they also reproduce. So they asexual. It's a single cell microorganism which is asexual, and the child description of that is they don't need partners to make babies. They do it themselves. The process they use is budding. It's like a bud on a potato. It just has a growth, or it starts growing at a point until that point reaches the same size as the mother cell. Then it breaks loose. It's its own cell. It's a complete same copy, and that cell can do the same and also buds and creates billions. It creates a colony of yeast. Okay, so let's answer some questions of the viewers. No, I just took 10 of the most asked questions on the groups and forums, and let's see if I can answer it for you. Maybe it's one of yours in here. So question number 1 would be, can I brew with baker's yeast? Yes, you absolutely can. Like I mentioned, baker's yeast is the same species as brewer's yeast. It's just a different stain. So, yes, brew. You can. Question number 2. Can I make beer and also ciders or wine with baker's yeast? Yes, you can make beer, cider, wine, even distilled alcohol, because yeast turns sugars into alcohol. So yes, you can brew anything with baker's yeast. Question number 3. There's different baking yeasts in my store. What one should I get? Now, in my country, we get 3 different types basically. One is fresh yeast, or some call it yeast cake. Then you get active dry yeast and instant dry yeast. Now, my personal preference would be the fresh yeast first, or the yeast cake, because I just prefer the taste. We have used that in baking. I would prefer that one. Then I would go secondly for active dry yeast, because you'll need to do that in a starter and get your colony growing before you pitch that into your brew. And well, I basically do starters mostly in all my brews, so it's not a hassle or a difficult process for me. Thirdly, I would go with the instant yeast, but I think that most beginning brewers, or these upcoming brewers now, should actually go for the instant yeast, because that you can just pitch over your brew. It would work. Same when you use it in baking. With the instant dry yeast, you need to proof that before you can use it. With the instant dry yeast, you can just pitch that in your dry ingredients and you're good to go. Now, one thing I should mention here is that it seems that baking yeast in different countries yield different results. Like in USA, I see they use the Fleischmann's yeast, and some of the guys on the forums from there say that they have good results on it. Others say it's not reliable, sometimes bigger alcohol content, sometimes lower. Also, I think it's in Sweden. They have, I don't know, I think the pronunciation would be kronjast, They have two varieties there. They have a sweeter one, and the sweeter one actually does very well in ales. Close to an ale's yeast alcohol content, very similar in taste. So it might be that the baker's yeast in your country, you need to test for yourself just to see. It's easy to test. I've done many of them. Okay, question number 4 would be, why buy brewer's yeast if baker's yeast does the same thing? Well, it does the same thing in the sense that it turns sugars into alcohol, but it has a lower alcohol tolerance. So when you're aiming for a higher tolerance, it's not the same thing. If you have a specific recipe you're following and you need a specific flavor profile, it does not do the same thing. So for me, it doesn't do the same thing. It does turn sugars into alcohol, but no, after all the work I put into preparing brew, if you do all grain, it's some work that you put in. I would not take the chance on reliability or messing up my flavor profile by adding baker's yeast. So, no. Question number 5. If I add more baker's yeast, will I get a higher alcohol content at the end? No. More yeast is not more alcohol. More food would make more alcohol. So your yeast needs more sugar to turn into more alcohol, but now your yeast needs to be able to deal with the higher alcohol content. So you need a yeast with a higher tolerance to alcohol before you can give it more food to turn into alcohol. So it's not the sense of more workers, it's rather more food for the workers. And also, I've seen with baking yeast that if you give it too much sugar in any way, it's like it shocks it and it goes to sleep, or it dies, or it kills itself or something, because it doesn't finish the way it should, and you're left with a sweet mess basically. Righty, number 6. What is the flavor profile of baker's yeast then? Well, that would depend from person to person. It would also depend on what food you're giving to your baker's yeast. So, in my personal opinion, out of ales and fruit beers I've made with it for tests, it's sort of like a spicy estery taste. Some people say that it has a yeasty taste. I don't know what that is. Others say sulfur. That would be bad. Something bad maybe in your brew itself. So it will differ from person to person. Me personally, it has a spicy, estery, fruity taste. Number 7. With baker's yeast, will baker's yeast make a great brew? No, for me not. In my country especially, no, I would not say a great beer. If you want to put the word great into brew, I would say you need to put in great yeast in the same sentence. So great yeast would make a great brew. Not, if you're expecting a great brew, then don't waste your time and effort on baker's yeast. Rather get brewer's yeast. They're not that much more in money value, if that's your problem. It's no, it's not going to make a great beer. It's going to make a drink with alcohol content. Although, if you're doing wines, fruity wines, or turning fruit juice into wines or something like that, that has a high sugar content, and like I said, the sugar content will kind of shock baker's yeast, and it will not completely finish. It would go to wherever it goes, but because of that sweet taste, because normally people add some sugar into that as well, the sweetness, I don't think because of that sweetness that you would actually taste a difference. So then it might be a great brew. So yeah, it depends on what you're brewing, but no, not for me. Not a great brew. Okay, question number 8. Will you brew with baker's yeast? Me personally, no. But I have yeast available to me. I harvest my own yeast if it's a good strain that I want to use again. I have baker's yeast available, the normal brewing yeast, and that I use for experiments on smaller batches to see how it works before I put in a 25 liter or so. I have British Ale MO7 available, I have USO5 available, I have some SAF cider available, I have brewing yeast of the brew shop, that's for an IPA, that one, some cider yeast, that I have yeast, so I use the normal brewing yeast just to do tests on, so I don't need baker's yeast. No, I will not brew with baker's yeast. If I don't have any of this and I did not harvest my own yeast, I would still get some from a buddy or let him harvest some for me. So I don't have the need, or it must be a very, very serious issue or emergency or double lockdown or something that I don't have anymore, and the lockdown must be 2 years or something that I can run out of all my yeast supplies, then maybe, yes, but not currently, no. Question number 9. I have copied a vodka recipe online and it tastes real bad. What did I do wrong, or is this the baker's yeast? No, you did nothing wrong. You basically made a mash now. So that thing now needs to run through a still to become the final product, vodka. So you get washes and mashes, but it still needs to go through a still, and that thing turns it into the final product. So you made the start of it. You still need a still, and so you can either give it to someone that has one, or you can build a still yourself. It's not that. It's not rocket science, but yes, you have one part of the puzzle now, basically. Question number 10, the last one. Will I taste the difference between brewing yeast and baking yeast? Yes, definitely, yes. I have done these tests with small batches where you basically take all your ingredients and say a 10 liter or so container, and then you split them into 2 5s, which is 1 gallons. And then you would pitch your brewing yeast, and then in another one you would pitch the baker's yeast. You will do them ferment through the whole process, get your gravity, bottle them, bottle conditioning them the same time, same temperature, everything, and then after the 4 weeks of bottling and conditioning and what have you, you would taste that same temperature next to each other. Yes, I taste the difference. It's clear difference. Like I said, if you do sweet wines and stuff, the sugar content is going to mess around with you, so then you might not. So, and that's the 10 questions. If there's any other questions that you would like to ask, you can pop it down in the comments down below and we'll get right on it. So label that one number 11. Next guy will go 12, what. So then I'll try to answer them as well. Like I said, most of these are my personal preference or my personal experience or what I've definitely heard from someone that did it. So it's my personal mouth that did the tasting. So yes, it's difficult to argue with myself out of my personal opinions or personal experiences, but please, you can also share your personal experience. Like I said, with these baker's yeast, it does seem that different brands, different countries, they do differ. So yes, but feel free, jump into the comments, let's get it on. If there's anything else you would like to see, you can also ask me there, and I will do some tests and see what we can do. I am now going to do a starter for a packet of yeast, actually this one, that has expired already. So it's just a test. We have some grain left from my brew that's currently in the fermenter. So we're going to take the rest of the grain bill and add some random hops and go crazy and make sort of like a easy IPA or something like that, and then see if we can get a starter running on this and if we can get it go. Now, the challenge why we are using this, I have other yeast if this one does not start in the starter that I'm going to do now. This has basically expired 4 years ago. So it's not, some people say it can last a year still, it's sealed inside of a packet, and if it was in a dry place, dry cool place, it should be fine. Okay, so this buddy is 4 years past its expiry date, so we're going to see, because the challenge was between me and my buddy. He said that he does not believe that much in starters and has never seen use for it, and he just dumps his yeast onto his brews, and it has always worked. Me personally, I go for the starter, get a nice colony going, pitch that into my brew, and well, I've never had an issue with that, so I stick with that. And then we had the challenge that if brew starters are so great, or yeast starters are so great, can you get a dead, expired yeast to start again? So it's not basically dead. I mean, this is in suspension, if you can put it like that. But now it is expired for 4 years. So we're going to see if the starter gets going. I'm going to record everything. If you want, I can either put that video with this one or split them and just make it a starter for someone that wants to see a starter. If this expired one fails, then like I said, we'll just do another one. I have a lot of yeast here, and then pitch that onto that 5-liter batch and get a good mix match IPA running there. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit that like button so I can put out more content and get busy. Give me some more work, please. So thanks guys, enjoy your brewing. It's an awesome hobby. It will get you into different things. I went from this to, I did the extract, to full grain, to brew in the bag. I went to yogurt making, doing cultures and swapping out cultures with other people, cheese making, also like craft cheeses, also getting some cultures in there, bread making, sourdough stuff. Yeah, it's like you just want to learn more, and craft stuff is just awesome. It's nice, like I said, satisfying hobby. You need patience though, and it's good. Get into it. Pop me some questions down below if you want to know what to get, and I'll be sure to assist if I can. Otherwise, I'll get some pros in on it. So, thanks guys. Have a good one.